Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradharin Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradharin Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanacharin Yamunatira Vanacharin Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanacharin Yamunatira Vanacharin Jayom Vishnu Paraparamsa Pavivajrakacharya Ashto Tadashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Thank you for coming to the Sunday program. Anybody's here for the first time? No? Okay. We're reading today, I was asked to speak on chapter 4. So we can turn to chapter 4. Text, we'll be reading, I'll be speaking on text 10, but I'll quickly, before I start, I'd like to read the first 10 verses really quick, just to, in case anyone doesn't know. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So like I said, I'll quickly read the first 9 verses, the Sanskrit and the translation, and then we can do the call and response on the 10th verse, which is the verse I was asked to speak on. Okay, anyways. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavam Ahamavyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manu Ishvakave Bravit. The Blessed Lord said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. Text 2. You can follow along if you know this. Evam parampara praptam imam raja yashu viduhu sakale nehar mahata yoga nashta parantapa. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in the course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. Text 3. Saivayam ayatedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhaktosi me sakacheti rahasyam hieta uttamam. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend. Therefore you can understand the transcendental mystery of this science. Text 4. Arjuna vacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha katam etar vikjaniyam tvam ado proktavaniti. Arjuna said, the sun god Vivasvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? Text 5. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjana Tanyaham Veda Sarvani Natvam Veta Parantapa. The Blessed Lord said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O Sadur of the enemy. Text 6, this is a famous verse. Ajopi sangavyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi sampakritim swamadhishtaya sambhavamyatma mayaya. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Text 7. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srajamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Text 8. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya. No, I read this wrong. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavama yuge yuge. In order to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to establish the religious principles, I advent myself millennium after millennium. Text 9. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvataha tvaktva deham punah janmam naitimam etu sarjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, or Arjuna. And this brings us to today's verse. Vita, freed from, I'm supposed to just read. Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, Maya, Mam, Upashita, Bhava, Jnana, Tapasa, Putaha, Matbhavam, Agataha, Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha, Manmaya Mamupashitaha, Bhavo Jnana Tapasa, Putamad Bhavam Agataha. Please chant.
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha
Bhaya Krodha
Manmaya Mamupashtaha
Manmaya Mamupashitaha
Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Putamad Bhavamagataha
Putamagataha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mamupashitaha Bhavo Jnana
Bhavo Jnana Tapasa
Puta Mad Bhavam Agataha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mamupashritaha Bhavo Jnana Tapasa
Bhavo Jnana Tapasa
Puta Madbhavam Agataha
Putabhavam Agataha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha
Manmaya Mamupashritaha
Manmaya Mamupashitaha
Bhavo Jnana Tapasya
Bhavo Jnana Tapasa
Puta Mad Bhavam Agataha
Putamad Bhavam Agataha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha
Manmaya Mam Upashritaha Bhavo Jnana Tapasha
Bhavo Jnana Tapasa
Puta Madbhavam Agataha
Putamad Bhavam Agataha
Vitaraga Bhayo Krodha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha
Manmaya Mamuprasrita
Mamupasita
Bhava Jnana Tapasya
Tapasa
Putamad Bhavam Agata
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mamupashitaha
Mamupasita
Bhavo Jnana Tapasa
Jnana Tapasa
Putamad Bhavam Agataha
Putamad Bhavam Agataha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha
Manmaya Mamupashritaha
Manmaya Mamupashitaha
Bhavo Jnana Tapasa
Bhavo Jnana Tapasa
Putamad Bhavam Agataha
Putabhavam Agataha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mamupashritaha Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Putamad Bhavam Agataha
Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mamupashita Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Bhutamadbhavamagataha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamopashnita bhavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavamagata.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mam upashritaha bhavo jnana tapasa putamad bhavam agataha.
Okay. So, we'll do the word for word. Vita, freed from. Raga, attachment. Bhaya, fear. Krodha, anger. Matmaya, fully in me. Mam, unto me. Upashitaha, being fully situated. Bhavaha, many. Jnana, knowledge. Tapasa, by penance. Putaha, being purified. Matbhavam, transcendental love for me. Agataha, attained. Translation, imported by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the supreme absolute truth. Generally, people who are attached to bodily conception of life are absorbed in materialism. That is almost impossible for them to understand that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge, and eternally blissful. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep the same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the supreme to be impersonal. And because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again. And so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence, attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all. Being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation, they become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Such people are in a diseased condition of life. Some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. Some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. This last class of men take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their affectionate hallucinations are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. One has to get rid of all three stages of attachment to the material world: negligence of spiritual life, fear of spiritual personal identity, and the conception of void that underlines the frustration of life. To get free from these three stages of material concept of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord, guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and follow the disciplines and regulative principles of devotional life. The last stage of devotional life is called bhava, or transcendental love of Godhead. According to Bhaktivedanta Swami, the signs of devotional service: ado shada tata sadhu sangata bhajana kriya, tato narta nivritti syat, tato nishta ruchi sata, ata shakti sato bhavas tata premabhyudhanchati, sadhakanam ayam premna pradurbhave bhave prakamaha. In the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This would bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instructions, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachment, attains steadiness in self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love of God is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. In the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, by the slow process of devotional service under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustrations resulting from void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. Om Nagyanatamrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshumilitam Yena Tasmai Shrigrave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayang Rupa Kadama Hyam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapatakamlam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Laita Shri Vishaka Vitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavana Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Taruvyascha Kripa Sindhiva Evacha Paditanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shira Dvaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Vita Raga Bhayakrodha Manmaya Mamupashataha Bhava Jnana Tapasa Putamad Bhavam Agataha. Being freed from attachment, fear and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So it's my great fortune to be able to speak on Bhagavad Gita. You know, Bhagavad Gita, when we read this book, this is the Lord personally revealing His mind to us. We get access to Krishna's mind. And this is completely unique in the field of religion, because no other religion can tell you they understand what the Lord is thinking. But we know what He's thinking, His address, what He looks like, everything in full. This is transcendental reality, nothing vague. This verse actually is gonna touch on this, because when one comes to Krishna consciousness and starts to understand Krishna consciousness, you'll see that most of what's in the name of religion is tinged with some form of impersonalism. They don't actually have full knowledge of the absolute truth. Therefore, it leads to some sort of impersonalism or mayavad. So, coming to this verse, in this chapter of transcendental knowledge, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, who he actually is, his actual position. We read this verse, this was the 6th verse, because Arjuna had asked, how is it possible that you spoke this knowledge to the sun god millions and millions of years ago? You and I are about the same age, So Krishna explains that, many, many births, he has actually, him and Arjuna have taken birth, but he can remember all of them, but you can't. And the reason this is possible is ajopi sangavyayama bhutanam isharopi sam prakritim swamadhishtaya sambhavami atmamayaya, is that Krishna comes in the same transcendental body. He doesn't actually come in a temporary body. Like all of us, we have like Prabhupada was saying in this material world, the bodies are temporary, they're full of ignorance and full of misery actually. But Krishna's body is not like that. So Arjuna gave Krishna the opportunity to establish who he actually is. Because most people, when they think of Krishna, they think he's just like us, If he's great, he's maybe just a little more great than us, He's just a little bit better than me. But actually, without understanding the actual greatness of Bhagavan, in reality, and in complete truth, which then we actually can't, we can't actually go back to Godhead. Krishna says, Janma karma chame devame vamyo veti tatvatah tvaktva deham punajama naiti mameti sujuna. That was the previous verse to this. Is that we actually have to understand him in truth, in full. Tatvatah means in reality. We actually have to understand him in truth. So that means we have to understand how actually great he is. And this is what Bhagavad Gita establishes, is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are simply insignificant, and we're completely dependent on him. So when one studies Bhagavad Gita, one should come to these conclusions. And right here, and from the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, you can say in this chapter is when Krishna is actually establishing his position in respect to who he actually, it's in respect to us. So he's completely transcendental. He's, whenever he comes into this material world, it's not like when we come to this material world. When we come to this material world, we're forced to come here. No one is asking to take birth. No one asks for all these, bodily calamities or anything that we're experiencing, all the misery that one experiences in this material world. No one is actually asking for them. So we can see very clearly, and Prabhupada, when he would preach, this is the main thing he would focus on, is that we're not in control. And if you can't even understand this, you're not even a human being. You're like an animal. Because an animal thinks that everything is for their enjoyment. They have no idea that there's some higher authority, controlling everything. They simply engaging, for what gratifies their personal senses. So this Bhagavad Gita, this science, is meant for at least human beings to understand. Because if we can't even come up to the platform of a human being and understand that we're not in control of everything, we're not in control in any aspect of our lives. We can't even control our own stool. What to speak of controlling, the whole universe or being in control of anything. So it's like we have to come to this understanding. So vitavaya raga bhaya krodha. We have to be free from this attachment. And Prabhupada describes it. In order to understand the absolute truth, to understand Krishna in full, we have to actually, these are some preliminary requirements. We have to be free from this attachment. Prabhupada says, one who's too much attached to this material world, you want to enjoy the material world too much, there's no hope for you in transcendental life. There's no hope for you in spiritual life. Too much attached to this material world, you can't even think beyond past an animal. An animal only thinks about sleeping, mating, eating, defending. This is animal life. This is not even human being life, because human beings, actual human being, which is very early on in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna chastises Arjuna that he says, Kuttastva kashmalamidam vishame paru anarya justam asvargyam. This is in the second chapter, I believe. Immediately, Krishna, actually, this is, just in case anybody wants to turn to it, is text 2, is the second chapter. Kuttastva kashmalamidam vishame samupastam anarya justam asvargyam kirti karam Arjuna. Krishna actually chastises Arjuna in this, and he's thinking, how does these impurities come upon you? You're not even, they're not befitting of man who knows the progressive values of life. But this is actually the platform of a human being. He understands that there's something beyond these temporary bodies. There's something beyond this temporary world. There's something, and the whole Varnashram Dharma culture was actually built on this. You had everyone understood very clearly that there's more to life, than this temporary existence. But when one is too attached, Vita Raga, you have too much, you can't think beyond these things, this temporary world. You think, some of the things that people think is, you just enjoy now and tomorrow, don't worry about the future, But actually, we have to be more responsible than that. Because human life is meant to be responsible and understand these finer things. This is the facility we're given in the human body. And if we don't, then we have to suffer in this material world. Death, birth, old age, and disease. These are the problems of life that are forced upon us. Again, because we're not in control. No one chooses to die. No one chooses to grow old or grow disease. These are the actual problems of life. One may think that because there's so much technological advancement that we're actually making progress. But the problems of life are still existence, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. So human life is meant to solve these problems. And therefore, that's why this science of Bhagavad Gita is spoken. Krishna is coming to actually deliver us, the fallen conditioned souls who are entangled in this samsara of birth, death, old age, and disease. And having to be in this material world, that every step there's danger, without even wanting to start a problem, we're forced to have them. Just like Arjuna, he's forced by the laws of material nature, by the arrangement of the material nature, he's forced to actually be in this battle where he has to fight even his own relatives. But the mission of human life is so important that to execute it, even if one has to kill his own family members or friends and relatives, then one must do it. Just this Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says it in one lecture actually, is that to show that even that Krishna consciousness is so important that Arjuna had to, in order to please Krishna, he had to actually fight his own family and friends. Because this is how important it is, transcendental life. We actually have no eternal relationship, you can say, to whatever family we're born with. They're not actually our relatives. They have nothing to do with us, actually. These so-called families and friends, you had millions of friends. You had millions of family members. You have no idea how many times we were born in this material world. We could have had, you could have had dog family, pig's family, so many different families, and we're thinking that this is actually my family. These are my friends, but we simply are coming together like two twigs that come together in a river with this flowing down, and then they come together temporarily, and then eventually they break apart. So when one comes to the transcendental path, or one wants to take a spiritual life, one has to understand that he has nothing to do with this material world. And this is understood, like this verse of today, is through tapasya. We have to actually become purified. When we restrict our senses, then and we become freed from attachment, then we can actually come towards a transcendental path. And then once we get to the transcendental path, there's more. There's other things. Because to understand, okay, fine, you understand that, okay, I must be serious. I have nothing to do with this material world. Everything is temporary. I must, become a transcendentalist. There's something beyond this temporary world. I want to be, I'm eternal. I understand that very clearly. Then you begin the process of becoming self-realized, and you might think that, well, everything is one. Because in this material world, everything is variety, and all variety brings suffering. So therefore, the absolute truth, which is blissful, must be impersonal. And this is actually a materialistic conception, because one is thinking with his materialistic mind and materialistic experience to assess, to establish the absolute truth. But Krishna says you have to give that up. You have to give it. This is the out of fear based on his personal experience in this material world. So Krishna says this also has to be given up, or else one cannot actually take shelter of him fully. So this idea, which is born out of the materialistic mind and is concocted, a materialistic mind that's fried out from failing to enjoy in this material world, and all his materialistic plans being crushed, and understanding that I'm not so much in control of this material world, I want nothing to do with it. So therefore, I want to take a spiritual life, and the goal must be something vague, something impersonal. But actually, this is a materialistic conception, because it's born from, our experience in this material world. So we just think in the opposite way. But real transcendental life, which Krishna says is a requirement if one wants to actually go back to Godhead, is that there is transcendental variety. Is that there's actually reality. This exists. We have transcendental feelings, transcendental senses, mind, intelligence. All these things that we see in this material world exist, and it's real in reality in the spiritual world, not temporarily manifested by this material world. In this material world, things are here for a moment, and then eventually they're gone. So, spiritual world, everything is alive, everything is actually real. When we actually come to the process of Krishna consciousness, real life actually begins. Because we begin to engage our senses in Krishna's service, that is actual life. But materialistic life is, we're under the illusion that I'm the enjoyer, I'm the center of everything. But spiritual life is the complete opposite. It's Krishna is in the center, Krishna's devotees, and service. And there's so much activity, there's so much to do in the spiritual world. Like we were hearing this morning, he was describing nicely all the different things that devotees do. So this idea has to be completely rooted out of the heart. And we might think, I've came to Krishna consciousness, I'm practicing, I know that the absolute truth is not impersonal. But actually, all of us are affected by this Mayavad, and Mayavad is the greatest enemy in this material world. All problems are rooted in Mayavad and in impersonalism, actually. Whatever problems you see in this material world, all rooted in this Mayavad and impersonalistic misconception. So we have to hear again, very clearly, and when we understand what is Mayavad, actually, we'll begin to see it everywhere. We'll begin to see how all problems, even within our movement or anywhere, is all going back to Mayavad. It's not understanding that actually Krishna is real, devotional service is real. I must take my service very seriously because it's real. It's actually giving pleasure to Krishna. It's not you do whatever you want and you call it devotional service. It's not whatever feels good, this is bhakti. Or, whatever. This is Mayavad actually. Because Krishna is very specific. He's a person. He likes things in a certain way. And when we don't do things according to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, by default, Yashastra Vidim Ushacha, Vartate Kama Karataha, Nasasisdim Mapnote Nasukam Na Param Gatim. Then Krishna says later on in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 16th chapter, this demoniac quality of not following Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Well, not only will you not be happy in this life, but you definitely won't be happy in the next life, and you can't even attain the supreme goal, which is going back to Godhead and establishing your real relationship with Krishna. So, as practitioners of Krishna conscious, which is actually the only transcendental path, is to come to Bhakti Yoga. All the yoga. Actually, yoga means bhakti. It is to actually connect to the Supreme Personality of God. So when we come to this process, we must be very convinced and certain that devotional service must be executed according to the instructions of the Acharya and the Shastras. Because if not, it leads to impersonalism. Because we might think that I can do whatever little thing I want to do. I can do it in my own way. And this is Mayavad actually. Not understanding that actually Krishna is real and devotional is real and it must be done in the way he likes it. So even all these other levels of mixed bhakti is actually mixed form of Mayavad. Any other, Gana Mishra Bhakti, Karma Mishra Bhakti is all traced with some impersonalism because we don't actually understand fully that everything should be done for the pleasure of Krishna according to the way he likes it and not in any way at all and how I like it, or how I think, how my feelings or my mind or anything like that may say. We should simply follow what Guru says. So don't think that we're free from this just because we've come to Krishna conscious. Oh, this verse doesn't apply to me. I think Krishna is real, but no. Because if Krishna is real, then it means we actually have to surrender. You cannot avoid the surrendering process. That means you actually have to apply yourself. You cannot be lazy. You cannot, do things the way you want to do it and call it bhakti and call it spiritual life or call it whatever you want. You have to actually scrutinizingly apply yourself and study the scripture and figure out how is it every aspect of my life I should mold it according to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Or else I'm at the risk of falling into some impersonalism, Mayavad, and this. Oh no, whatever. This is okay. This. Oh, it's not like it's not according to Shastra. Oh, that's okay. That means you don't understand that Shastra actually is coming from Krishna. Krishna is revealing himself through the scriptures, and he's saying, "Do like this, act like this," and you're thinking you know better than Krishna. This is again impersonalism. And this is the fear of transcendental reality, that you actually have to surrender to someone who's supreme, someone who's real, and everything else other than that is simply illusory. Then this is stemming from fear, actually. And then when one becomes frustrated, and this is very dangerous even for us as devotees, because one can become frustrated. One can think, there's so many rules or so many, things we have to do. Maybe it's too difficult. I can't follow any of it. I can't follow. I'm struggling to follow the basics. Then one can think, can lean to impersonalism and voidism. One would think, it's all just, forget it. It's all just, I'll just do whatever I want. Or you just reject the Shastra. And this leads to voidism. You actually will never be fully convinced of the absolute truth. You'll hear the pastimes of Krishna. You hear but inside you won't actually have full faith in them because you're still implicated with this Mayavad Voidism conception of, because you gave up hope on the Shastras, you gave up hope on following things according to the Acharyas. So we have to be very strict in this regard. And Prabhupada says, in this purport, particularly about the Voidists, is that sometimes they take, they become angry out of hopelessness of all spirituals, speculations, and then they take into some intoxications and hallucinations, and they expect that it's spiritual. This can also be attributed to Vaishnavas. Even if you're not necessarily taking intoxications or spiritual or anything like that, you can take shelter of your own mind in the form of your so-called transcendental feelings, and you can have some vision of how your Uttama Adhikari, Bhav Bhakti, or Gopi in Vrindavan, like many sahajas do in Vrindavan, and they dress like gopis, or they imagine themselves to be transcendental, but they actually never took up the process of Krishna consciousness very seriously, or which is according to the Acharyas, which is according to Shastra, and therefore they still have they become entangled in this, and they never actually get to understand who Krishna is. They never actually get the taste for real spiritual life, because real spiritual life has nothing to do with material life, and you cannot mix the two. You cannot say you have a taste for stool and you have a taste for sweet rice. It's all in the same level. It means you haven't actually tasted sweet rice. You're just, just sweet rice with some stool in it, and you're thinking it's sweet rice. So spiritual life, actual spiritual taste, comes from first being freed of these misconceptions. So Krishna, right after he says, all you have to do is understand me and you will attain me, he says, wait a second. In order to understand me, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mamupashita, you have to give up these false conceptions, be it so materialistic, attached, cultivating material desires in the name of spiritual life, or cultivating, having fear of wanting to actually surrender to Krishna. You're cultivating impersonalism and Mayavad, because you don't want to actually follow in the process. You don't actually want to surrender. And this is enviousness of Krishna. So we have to be careful, and we have to study Prabhupada's books, take advantage of this opportunity. This is not just a Hindu movement or Christian movement, or it's anyone can take it. This movement is this science of devotion, is teaching love of God. Prabhupada mentions this in so many of his Bhagavad Gita. We're just teaching the science of how to love God, And love of God doesn't mean, God give you my daily bread, or something else in the name of spirituality, or they have no idea. I remember I was doing book distribution once, and I was meditating on this, how wow, we're the only ones giving something different to everybody. This is like, I was just so happy to hold Prabhupada's books, and I was like, wow, we're the only ones actually giving something different. Everybody else, in the name of spirituality, is giving the same thing. It's materialism in the garb of spirituality. It's just, you come to spiritual life and you think you can do things your own way. Or you come to, and you can make God your order supplier. God, He would give me the firewood, the wood to feed the fire of my burning material desires. And we'll call that spiritual. We'll call that, I'm such a great saint, because see how much wealth, by me, praying to God and whatever, or I've got so much wealth, or I got so much things. But this is not actually spiritual. This is material. We understand when we come to spirit, so it has nothing to do with this material world at all. This completely rejects all materialism, completely rejects all cheating so-called religion in the name of, religion which is going on nowadays. It has nothing to do with pure love of God. It has nothing to do, because this world is temporary. We have to be completely convinced of this. And before this, this chapter is spoken, what is spiritual and what is material is clearly established in the second chapter. Krishna, all these basic principles that were applied to the material body is also applied to this temporary material world. It has a beginning and an end. It's always changing. It has no, intrinsic value separate from the fact that it's actually coming from Krishna himself. It has no reality because it's there and then it's gone. But the nature of spiritual is that it's eternal. It's never changing. And this is human life, is to understand this basic thing that we're eternal. I'm not going to die. This is, I have to be responsible. I can't just act any way I want and there'll be no consequences. Maybe there's some consequences. Maybe, no, there is going to be consequences. You're going to be entangled in the laws of material nature. You're going to be kicked around in 84 million species of life. 84 lakhs, 8,400,000 species of life. Sorry, I lived in India for a while and they speak different lakhs and like that. So we'll be entangled in all these different species of life. We'll be forced. These miseries will be forced upon us. Not that we'll want them. No one's wanting miseries. Everyone wants Ananda. Everyone wants to be full of bliss. And actual reality is full of bliss. But, due to, identifying with this material world, we're forced with these, temporary miseries. Krishna explains that this is the nature of this material world, is that it's dukkhalayam ashashvatam, it's temporary and it's full of miseries. And no one can argue that. It doesn't even take, this is not transcendental. To know that this material is temporary and is full of misery is not transcendental. It's just basic common sense of human, intelligence to understand and see the temporality of this material world and understand that I have nothing to do with it. And then when you get to that point, you can take up spiritual life. But if you don't even understand that this material is temporary and you're falsely making plans, falsely making, ideas of how I can enjoy this material world more and more, and how I secure a nice future for myself, all this will be simply baffled by the laws of material nature. You'll be forced to be baffled, because the nature of this material world is not that. We don't belong here. And therefore, Krishna comes to establish this. This is the principle, is that you actually have to get out of here. You have an eternal relationship. You have a real home, and it's not this temporary world. Krishna is coming to remind us of this. And therefore, we have to actually understand. We have to read. We have to try to, take up the process of Krishna consciousness. Take shelter of this movement. Take shelter of Srila Prabhupada's books. And the process of Krishna consciousness under the shelter of the devotees following Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And I'll stop there for some quick questions or comments.
Okay, I was just wondering, the other day I was distributing books and I was trying to give someone a Bhagavad Gita, and they said, "Oh, I'm not a Hindu." And I said, "That's cool, yeah, me either." But they learn in their class that Bhagavad Gita is a Hindu scripture, and Vishnu and Krishna is one of the Hindu gods. And I was, we don't have much time to. I didn't have time to sit him down and explain everything. He was trying to walk away. Like, how do you respond to that? What do you say? And people are brainwashed from atheistic teachers and religious studies classes.
Well, if you're convinced yourself, you come across this all the time. I come across it as well. Bhagavad Gita is a Hindu book. I'm not a Hindu. I know everything already. You find these also. I'm a Hindu. I don't need this. I already know. But if you're convinced that this is not a Hindu book, and you try to make that very clear to them, you won't find the word Hindu in the Bhagavad Gita at all. This is the science. Science means what? It's the process by which we discover something or we do something. This is science. So this is the science of devotion, the process by which we develop love for God. And if someone's actually interested in love of God, and you convey this, like this is, it has nothing to do with sectarian knowledge or anything like that, then people who are sincere will actually appreciate it. I mean, those who are not sincere, they don't want to listen at all. They're like, I'm Hindu, and they don't want to listen. They're stuck with I know everything. This is a waste of time on book distribution. It's like a waste of time. But if they actually want to, they're inquisitive and they're willing to listen, then we preach to people who are willing to listen. If people are not willing to listen, what can you preach to them? He's already closed-minded. Any Parameshwara Prabhu?
If I can make a comment and then a question, if I could, please.
Yes.
Just in answering his question, I found, at least so far from what I've tried, the most effective, as I say, the original knowledge is a science. We don't make a religion out of it. Hinduism is a man-made concoction later on down the road. And that definitely disarms people quite a bit. Or we don't want to change your faith. This is the original knowledge of the science, like that. And the question is, I really appreciate this class tremendously. You bring some insight into this that I haven't really considered so deeply. And would you say then that you're talking about everything roots back to Mayavad and Voidist philosophy? Would you say that if we do not take this so seriously, that we should consider ourselves already influenced by Mayavad and Voidist philosophy?
Yes. Actually, it is. It's in the heart. It's the the first cause of fall down is what's it called? Wanting to be God. Wanting to take his position is described. This is the first reason to fall. And then once we come here, we become attached to material things. You become an enjoyer, and then you become materialism. But then when you come to get out, you have to be free of attachment, and then you have to reverse. The last snare of Maya is Mayavad, is impersonalism. So to the degree that you're still in Maya, you're infected by some form of impersonalism. I mean, all materialism is stemming from impersonalism. Therefore, when Shankaracharya came and propagated impersonalism, so the people, why? Because they'll become more materialistic and have more sex, and the population would increase. It's coming from Mayavad. And you trace out, you'll see it. It's all in. It's deeply layered in the heart. And until we've really, unless you hate Mayavad, you're not even a devotee. So it's just like you really, because they're killing Krishna. Krishna is real. The Shastra is real. We have to live according to Shastra. We cannot speculate. You cannot live according to your own feeling. It's Mayavad. And you have to really, it's like, you hate, you also have to begin to hate. You cannot become purified unless you hate the sin, you hate sin. So you become disgusted with all sin. You become disgusted with, Mayavad. And you see, Bhaktivedanta said he really, really hates Mayavad because it really just destroys the opportunity for, devotees to come in contact with Radha and Krishna. So it's just like, every moment you get. Anyways, I'll stop there.